You think someone like you could understand what genius is worth, he said, his tone sharp enough to cut through the courtroom. Evelyn didn't answer. She just held the small silver device, the one they all wanted, the one already tied to too many losses. Cameras clicked. The world leaned closer. For a breath, even she wasn't sure she'd survive what came next. Before we dive in, let me know. What time are you listening to this, and where are you? Drop a comment below. We'd love to hear from you. Evelyn woke before the alarm. Damp wood lingered from last night's storm, mixed with the faint trace of stale coffee. She lay still, one hand on her stomach, feeling her baby shift. That small kick no longer startled her. It steadied her. The garbage truck rattled past, the sound that meant Thursday, her longest workday. She rose, dressed in the same jeans and sweater, tied her hair, and stepped onto the porch. Ash Brooks still slept. Cars lined the street, wet and dull. Across the way, Mrs. Duffy watered her plants, nodded once, and went back to her routine. At the corner store, the bell above the door gave its weak jingle. Carl, the manager, barely glanced up. Evelyn unpacked Soda's folded boxes, kept her hands moving. The baby rolled her a quiet reminder. Almost there, she whispered. By mid-morning, the rush faded. Mrs. Morton, in her bright pink scarf, placed 2 cans and a newspaper on the counter. You heard about the storage auction, she asked. People stop paying rent, they sell the whole unit. My cousin once found a working jukebox. You never know what folks leave behind. Evelyn smiled politely. The words lingered. You never know what people leave behind. Carl called everyone to the back. His voice came flat. Corporate's cutting hours. We're letting a few of you go. He paused, eyes landing on her. You should rest anyway. Not safe standing too long. The room stiffened. No one spoke. She only nodded, picked up her bag, and walked out into the wet air. At the bus stop, her clothes clung to her. The bus passed without stopping, schedule changed again. Cars hissed by. She sat motionless, unsure where to go. Across the street, a cafe glowed warm. She crossed over and ordered coffee, the cheapest size. From the next booth came talk about the same auction. One of those units was that inventor's. Bellamy, remember him, the one who crashed his plane. Probably junk now, another replied. Still, you never know. That phrase again. Evelyn traced the rim of her cup. Maybe she could go find something small to sell cover rent. The thought stayed with her. The rain thinned. She walked home, shoes squeaking on the pavement. At the post office, a torn flyer caught her eye. Ashbrook storage auction, Saturday 1 p.m. She folded it carefully and slipped it into her pocket. Dinner was leftover soup, eaten standing. She counted the cash in her wallet, $43, a handful of coins. Enough for one bid if she was lucky. The refrigerator hummed steady behind her. The baby kicked again, stronger this time. We'll figure it out, she murmured. Carl's meeting ended quicker than it began. Corporate made the cuts, he said. Nothing I can do. No one met his eyes. The dull drumming outside matched the stillness in the room. Evelyn stood with her hands clasped, name tag cold against her chest. Her name came third. She didn't argue. Someone offered a tissue. She waved it off. When she left, a few clerks whispered, relieved it wasn't them. She stepped into the lot, shoes splashing through puddles, and kept walking until the store disappeared behind her. Her coat and hair clung damply to her skin, the chill seeping through. Her stomach tightened. Stress did that now. A delivery van honked as she stepped too close to the curb. She muttered an apology and kept moving. At the bus stop, the board leaned sideways, streaked with ink from old postings. The next bus wouldn't come for an hour. She sat, hands resting on her lap too, drained to cry. Losing a job wasn't new, but losing this one felt heavier. Across the street, a cafe glowed with life. People talked, typing on laptops as if the world stayed steady for them. She went and ordered the cheapest coffee and sat near the door. The waitress poured without asking. At the next table, 2 men talked about an auction. Arthur Bellamy's unit, one said. The clean energy guy. Crashed his plane, remember? The other chuckled. Probably junk, but you never know. Could be gold under a tarp. Evelyn listened. She didn't care about gold. She cared about the word auction. She'd seen people turn junk into rent money. Maybe that was something she could try, a small gamble, one she could control. She walked toward the post office. The community board was cluttered with flyers, lost pets yard sales, church dinners. A bright orange sheet near the bottom caught her eye, Ashbrook storage auction, Saturday p.m. She tore off the strip with the address. The paper felt flimsy yet carried an odd kind of weight. That night she heated canned soup, flipped channels without watching, then checked her wallet. $43, 2 quarters and a bus pass. Enough for one bid. Enough to try. The baby kicked. She rubbed her belly gently. "We'll manage," she murmured. Saying it made the thought feel real. The next day she made a list items to sell groceries, to skip a reminder, to call the power company. On the margin she wrote the auction address. At the store she returned her apron. Carl mumbled something close to sorry. "Don't be," she said, and walked off. Near the entrance, Mrs. Morton appeared, pink scarf, bright as always. "You all right, dear? I'll manage," Evelyn replied, echoing herself. "You still going to that auction?" "Oh, yes," Mrs. Morton said. "You coming?" "Maybe. Need a ride?" "I've got space in the truck. You'll love it, people digging through other folks' mistakes." Evelyn almost laughed. "Sounds about right." Mrs. Morton's truck carried a faint mix of peppermint and gasoline. She drove with one hand, talking about her grandson grocery prices and how storage auctions always drew a strange crowd. Evelyn listened, eyes on the winding road between fir trees. They reached the yard before noon. The lot was half gravel, half mud. Rows of metal doors stretched out like a forgotten street. People wandered, measuring their chances. Mrs. Morton waved to a few familiar faces and pointed at the registration booth. "Go on, sweetheart. You'll need a bidder card." Evelyn filled out a form, handed over her ID, and received a cardboard number 17 written in thick black ink. The clerk barely looked up. "Cash only if you win." When the auctioneer started, the group followed in a loose pack. One door rolled up broken chairs, old boxes. Another held tires and a cracked fish tank. Most glanced once and moved on. The third door opened with a groan. A small workbench, metal crates, papers scattered, and a wooden chest leaned against the wall. Dust stirred, catching in her throat. The crowd lingered. "Opening bid 20, the auctioneer barked. A man in a blue cap raised his card. Someone else said 30. Evelyn gripped her number, pulse climbing. Mrs. Morton leaned close. "If you're doing it, do it now." 40. 50, the man countered. 60. Her voice came steadier than she felt. The man shook his head. "Let her have it. Sold number 17. The gavel struck and Evelyn blinked, startled she'd actually won. The auctioneer moved on. Mrs. Morton patted her arm. Could be junk, could be history. Evelyn paid, got her receipt, and was told she had a day to clear the space. Mrs. Morton offered help, but Evelyn refused gently. "I'll handle it. Thank you for the ride." When she left, the lot emptied. Evelyn stood at the entrance, hand resting on the cold frame, breathing steady. The place smelled of dust and oil. The first crate held rusted tools. Another box, bolts, wiring, and a name tag, A. Bellamy, Prototype Division. She traced the letters. Bellamy, the inventor they'd mentioned at the cafe. She found the chest near the back. The latch resisted, then gave way. Inside, papers bound with twine, notebooks, and a small gray metal box. A seam split its top, a switch on one side. When she brushed it, a faint hum stirred and stopped. She turned it over. Microcell Beta 1 etched faintly. The name meant nothing, yet something about it felt alive. She placed it in her bag, gathered the papers, and glanced through blueprints covered in equations she couldn't read. At home, she spread the papers on the table. The gray box sat beside them still. The notebook showed diagrams of power grids, and at the end of one, a note in red ink caught her eye. "Whoever finds this, remember, energy should belong to everyone." The words made her pause. She closed the book, unsure if she'd found something brilliant or dangerous. A knock startled her. A man in a dark coat stood at the door, rainwater on his sleeves. "Ms. Shaw, Michael Hale, Dynamics. We're looking for company property sold by mistake, a prototype belonging to Mr. Bellamy. May we come in?" She gripped the doorframe. "No. It's a matter of security," he said with a polite smile. "You may not realize what you have. I don't have anything of yours." He studied her, then handed over a card with a silver logo. "If you find something unusual, call us. It would save you trouble." She locked the door twice after he left, drew the curtain, and stared at the card gleaming on the counter. Her pulse matched the rain. The gray box sat under the lamp, too light for its weight, too still to trust. She turned the card face down, hand resting on her stomach. The baby kicked once, firm. She exhaled, unsure whether what she'd found was meant to help or stay buried. The box stayed on the table through the night. Evelyn barely slept, thoughts circling it like restless wings. It sat beside her untouched breakfast, silent as if aware. She poured another cup, stared at the card from Hale Dynamics, then slipped it into a drawer under unpaid bills and closed it. She packed the notebooks into a tote bag. Too strange to keep out, too important to discard. At the library, she spread them across a corner table. Sharp pencil lines looped around dense formulas she couldn't read. One symbol kept reappearing, a circle split by a diagonal line beside the phrase core activation threshold. A librarian passing by glanced at the pages. Looks complicated. Yeah, Evelyn replied. It belonged to someone named Bellamy. The woman's brows lifted. Arthur Bellamy. The clean energy guy. My husband used to talk about him. Shame what happened. She moved on. Later, walking home, Evelyn noticed a black sedan across the street. It idled, then pulled away when she met its gaze. Her pulse jumped. She didn't bother pretending it was coincidence. She called the number on the business card just to test it. A recording played. Thank you for contacting Hale Dynamics. Please leave a message for our corporate security division. She hung up without speaking. The baby stirred again. It's fine, she whispered, though her voice didn't sound convinced. That evening, Jonas Reed appeared at her door with a plastic bag. He used to rent across the street before moving into a downtown office. Thought you might need dinner that isn't canned, he said. She let him in. The smell of sesame noodles filled the kitchen as he unpacked the boxes. I heard from Mrs. Morton you bought Bellamy's unit, he said. You and everyone else. He grinned faintly. Small towns run on gossip. But listen, I used to handle contracts for Hale Dynamics. Be careful. They don't ask twice politely. Her fork froze. They already came once. He nodded, unsurprised. Then you should know this isn't about a missing gadget. Bellamy's work could change everything, wipe out entire industries. I don't care, she muttered. I just bought a box of junk. Maybe not, he said. You might be sitting on something worth more than Ashbrook itself. She met his eyes. That's supposed to make me feel better. No. Just ready. They ate in silence. Before leaving, Jonas offered to stop by tomorrow to look at the papers. She agreed, mostly not to be alone. The next days blurred. People greeted her differently, too friendly, too curious. Even Carl from the store called, asking if she was still around. She kept her answers short. Then Friday came. Returning from groceries, she saw her front door ajar. The lock wasn't broken. It had been picked cleanly. Drawers hung open. The kitchen table was bare except for the gray box centered neatly untouched. She checked each room. Nothing gone but the notebooks. A tight, steady panic rose in her chest. Whoever came knew exactly what to take. She called Jonas. His tone was clipped. Don't call the police yet. If Hale Dynamics did this, we need proof first. What if they come back, then call me? Hide the device somewhere safe, someplace no one would look. She tucked it into an empty cereal box in the cupboard, then scrubbed dishes that weren't dirty. Rearranged shelves, paced the hallway. Movement helped her breathe. By evening, she was drained. The baby's blanket lay across her lap. Passing cars hummed by, each one sharper than usual. Jonas arrived, scanned the room and sighed. They were careful, professionals. Then what now? Nothing yet. If they didn't take the device, they're waiting to see what you'll do. She stared at the space where the notebooks once sat. I don't want any of this. Neither did Bellamy, Jonas said. That's how he ended up dead. The words sank in like cold water. Evelyn said nothing. Her mind circled the gray box, hidden but not forgotten. Jonas gathered a few scattered papers into a folder. I'll make copies, bring them back tomorrow. Something irreversible had begun. The doorbell rang before dawn. Evelyn hadn't finished her first cup when she saw a police officer on the porch. Hughes, the one she'd seen at the grocery store. Sorry to bother you, ma'am, he said, adjusting his hat. Got a report about a break-in. You the caller. She stepped aside. They didn't take much. Just a few notebooks. My friend said not to call, but I changed my mind. Hughes scanned the small room, jotting notes. Any idea who might have done it? Someone from Hale Dynamics, she replied. A man came before, said he wanted company property. He frowned. That a tech firm? Yes, big one. He made a small sound somewhere between disbelief and boredom. We don't see much of that sort here. He promised to file a report, though it might take some time. She watched his car roll away, the sound of tires fading. The house felt altered, as if it no longer belonged fully to her. Jonas called later. "You did the right thing," he said, "but it won't stop them. I'll try to get the notebooks back, though chances are slim. They already know where I live," she murmured. "You've still got more to lose than you think?" His tone softened, then the line clicked dead. By noon, the town already knew. At the pharmacy, a clerk leaned forward, eyes bright with curiosity. "Heard your place got hit. Must have been awful." Evelyn gave a polite smile, paid, and walked out. Two women stood near the bakery, whispering. One met her gaze briefly before turning away. The attention pressed on her like heat. She took the long way home through the park. A boy tossed crumbs to ducks while his mother scrolled her phone. Life continued easily for everyone else. Mail waited by the door. Among the bills lay a white envelope stamped Hail Dynamics. She tore it open. The words were spare and final. "Cease and desist. Return all company materials within 72 hours to avoid prosecution." She dropped the letter, staring toward the cupboard where the gray box hid. Her pulse quickened. That night she jumped at every sound. Around 9, Jonas knocked. His jacket was damp, his face drawn. "I found something," he said. "Bellamy's patents. Hail Dynamics filed them after his death. Some dates don't match. You think they forged them, I'm certain. But proving it's harder. If we can show this prototype predates their claim, you could argue ownership under auction law. Thin defense, but it's something." Evelyn flipped through dense pages of legal print. "You sound like you've done this before." "I wrote some of their contracts," he said. "Never thought I'd be fighting my own work. I can't take them on. I can barely afford groceries." "You won't do it alone. I'll represent you. No fee. That's not something I can repay." "Then don't. Just don't hand over that device." She wanted to believe him, but the idea of facing a corporation pregnant and broke felt impossible. "I'll file tomorrow," Jonas said. "Once we do, they'll push harder, but you'll be on record as owner." "Why help me?" He hesitated. "Because I helped them once. I owe someone better this time." After he left, she reread the letter until the words blurred. By morning, her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Calls, messages, headlines, local woman hoards stolen tech. The attached photo showed her mid-blink at the auction. A knock followed. Two officers stood at the door, one holding a clipboard. "Ms. Shaw, the taller, said we're here to serve you a summons. You're being sued for unlawful possession of corporate property." The courthouse in Portland felt colder than it should. Evelyn followed Jonas through security, clutching her tote like someone might grab it. Her name echoed faintly when the clerk called their case, and her knees weakened. The judge entered, brisk and tired. Jonas rose. "Your Honor, my client lawfully purchased the disputed materials at a public auction." His voice was calm, but his hands shook as he adjusted his glasses. Opposing counsel began. "The defendant, Ms. Shaw, currently holds a prototype designed and patented by Hail Dynamics. Said item was never released for sale. We request its immediate return." Words like unauthorized possession blurred together. Evelyn's hands went numb. When the judge asked if she wished to speak, she only shook her head. During recess, Jonas led her into the hall. "You did fine," he murmured. "I didn't do anything. Sometimes that's better." He lowered his voice. "They'll offer a settlement money. You'd lose the prototype but walk away clean. What if I refuse? They'll bury you in filings until you can't fight." "I can't sell it," she said quietly. "Not after what Bellamy wrote." He sighed. "You don't need to decide now. There's someone I might reach, Lena Park, Bellamy's former partner. If she talks, it could change everything." After lunch, the session resumed. The company requested an injunction. Jonas objected, but the judge granted it. Evelyn could keep the device but not move or alter it. By the time they left, drizzle misted the streets. Jonas offered a ride. Neither spoke as the city thinned to forest, then open road. She rested her forehead on the glass, trying to remember what normal felt like. Back in Ashbrook, she thanked him and stepped out. The sea's faint tang carried through the wind. Her house stood, dark curtains drawn. On the porch, she paused, listening. Nothing stirred. The mailman came early, dropping bills and one note in hurried scrawl. "They're not finished. Watch who talks to you." No signature. The handwriting wasn't Jonas's. She burned it in the sink and opened a can of soup she couldn't eat. Later, Jonas called. "Found her, Lena Park. Lives near Mount Hood off-grid. Won't talk by phone. So what now? I'll drive tonight." Stay home. Keep the prototype hidden. She wanted to argue but only said, be careful. After the call, she checked every latch twice, then sat at the table with the gray box. Her reflection rippled faintly across its surface. She traced the seam, felt a faint pulse beneath the metal-like breath. The hum she'd once heard didn't return, but its stillness made her uneasy. Bellamy's notebook lay open beside it. The ink on one page had bled. They can't patent what belongs to the world. She shut it quickly. The sound was too loud in the empty room. Tires crunched on gravel. An engine idled, then cut off. Her throat tightened. She glanced through the curtain, only a shadow near the mailbox. A figure bent straight and walked away. On the grass lay an envelope, a photograph of her sitting at the table with the gray box. On the back, neat handwriting read, "Return it before it's too late." She dropped it, heart hammering. The phone rang. Jonas again, breathless. "I'm halfway up the mountain. She'll meet me tomorrow morning." She claims Bellamy built more than one prototype. Jonas, someone was outside my house. They took pictures. Lock everything. Don't open the door for anyone. I'll call once I know more. The line went dead. When daylight reached the clock, she stood stretched and brewed tea. The gray box sat where it always had, unmoved. Her hands shook enough to spill as she poured. Chamomile rose faintly, grounding her. For a moment she thought it was over, then noticed the back door ajar, rainwater pooling at her feet. By the time Jonas called, the sky had dulled. Evelyn hadn't slept. The new lock held, but she still checked it every few hours. "I met her," he said, his voice faint through the static. "Lena Park. She's alive and she has proof that could destroy Hale Dynamics. I'm bringing her back. When tomorrow morning. She wants to stay hidden until then. Hold tight one more night." "I don't think they'll wait." "You're right, but we need her. Without her, they'll bury this." "Be careful," she whispered. "I know." The call ended with a pop of static. She spent the day pretending to clean, shifting the same objects again and again. Each sound made her pause. The mail brought only bills. The calm felt heavier than noise. At the grocery store, Mrs. Morton waved from the counter. "You doing all right, honey? Haven't seen you lately." "Just busy," Evelyn said. "Well, people been talking." "Don't mind them. They don't know half of it." "Thanks," she murmured, leaving quickly. The town moved as if nothing had happened. Cars idling, dogs barking, familiar faces avoiding her. The ordinariness stung. On the porch, a small package waited. No return address, her name scrawled unevenly. She listened before bringing it in. Light badly taped. Inside lay a single envelope and a newspaper clipping. "Engineer Arthur Bellamy killed in plane explosion investigation. Points to mechanical error." Below it, Richard Hale's quote, "His work will continue to inspire innovation." A photograph slipped from the envelope, Bellamy beside a woman, both smiling, holding a device identical to hers. On the back in faded ink, he never signed it over. She stared until the letters blurred. That night she called Jonas but got voicemail. She hung up without speaking. Dinner sat untouched. The baby moved restlessly, and she whispered, "We're almost there," though she didn't believe it. Headlights swept across the wall near midnight. She switched off the lamp and crouched behind the couch. The car idled, then drove on. She stayed frozen long after it left. Toward dawn, she brewed more tea for the warmth. Bellamy's notes lay open. "Energy without control is chaos. Control without compassion is tyranny." She traced the line with her finger. It sounded like a warning meant for her. When daylight returned, the stillness felt fragile. She packed a small bag and kept it by the door. The gray box rested on her lap, faintly vibrating. Her phone buzzed an unknown number. "Jonas won't make it back. Don't wait for him." She called again and again, each attempt going straight to voicemail. By afternoon, the wind picked up. Branches scraped the siding, tapping like knuckles. Once she opened the door expecting him, but the street was empty. When the knock came, it was soft. She opened the door halfway. A woman in a rain jacket stood there, face pale from travel. "Evelyn Shaw." "Yes, I'm Lena Park." Evelyn stepped back, startled. "Jonas said he'd bring you." "He couldn't. They were following him." "I came by bus." Lena's voice was low, deliberate. Arthur trusted no one at the end. He left 2 prototypes, one for research, one for proof. "The one you have is proof. The real one's gone." Evelyn tried to follow. Then what happens now? They'll never stop until they have both. Lena glanced toward the street. We can't stay here. There's a cabin near the coast, Bellamy's old place. He hid his personal files there. If we reach it, maybe we can finish what he started. Evelyn wanted to argue, but the woman's tired certainty left no room. Give me 10 minutes. Lena nodded, scanning the street as Evelyn packed the gray box, the notebook, and a few clothes. Her hand lingered on the crib before pulling away. They left without speaking. Tires rolled over gravel as the town receded behind them. Evelyn watched houses blur into gray, unsure if she was leaving home or fleeing it. The box rested beneath a blanket on her knees, silent and heavy. After miles of steady driving, Lena finally spoke. Arthur loved this route. Said the sea cleared his head. He believed energy should belong to people, not corporations. That's why Hale wanted him gone. Evelyn said nothing. The baby turned, a quiet reminder of what still waited. They stopped for gas near a half-deserted fishing town. Lena went to pay while Evelyn filled the tank. Across the road, a man in a raincoat loitered near a payphone pretending to smoke. When he glanced up, recognition struck one of the men who'd come to her house. Lena, she hissed as the woman returned. We need to go. Lena didn't ask. She started the car before Evelyn shut the door. Tires spun through water as they sped off. In the mirror, the man raised a phone to his ear. Fog swallowed the last sign for Ashbrook. Lena turned onto a dirt road leading toward a cluster of cabins by the cliffs. The wind carried salt and damp wood. The cabin felt frozen in someone else's life. Dusty books, a faded calendar, still showing the year Bellamy died. Evelyn dropped her bag and helped pry open an old cabinet. There were folders labeled in Bellamy's hand. He was building a cell that ran indefinitely, Lena said, sorting papers. No fuel, no waste. The board delayed the patent, claiming the world wasn't ready. Arthur refused, and they made sure he'd never file it himself. Evelyn traced the thin ink of a blueprint. You think Hale killed him? I know he did. Lena pulled a sealed envelope from the drawer. He left this for whoever found the second prototype. That's you. Evelyn unfolded the letter. If you're reading this, truth has found another voice. Bellamy described forged safety reports, investor fraud, and the cost of exposing it. He warned that truth would destroy whoever carried it. Evelyn's hands trembled. He wanted me to finish this. He wanted someone who still believed it mattered, Lena said. You have more to lose, and that's your strength. They spent hours scanning files with Lena's old laptop. Wind pushed through the cracks. When the power flickered, Lena cursed softly. They're tracing the signal. We need to move offline. A low rumble followed engines approaching. Lena shut the laptop and motioned toward the back door. They found us. They ran through mud toward the cliff's headlights cutting through the trees. Evelyn gripped the box tighter. It vibrated faintly, reacting to her panic. This way, Lena led her along a narrow trail to a shed stacked with old solar panels. They ducked under the slanted roof for cover. They won't shoot, Lena gasped. Not with you pregnant. Evelyn wasn't sure. A man's voice called out, calm, controlled, Ms. Shaw, you've made a mistake. Hand over the device and no one gets hurt. Lena pressed a flash drive into Evelyn's palm. Everything's on here. If they take me, find Jonas. Promise. Evelyn shook her head. You're coming too. Lena's expression softened. Arthur trusted me once. Don't let me fail him again. She shoved open the back window. Go, Instinct One. Evelyn climbed through, scraping her arm. She ran downhill, mud gripping her shoes. Behind her shouts rose then a crash. She didn't look back. By the time she reached the shore, her breath burned. The tide was rising fast. A flicker of light glowed briefly from the cabin before vanishing. She found shelter in a small cave crouched low, the box still humming faintly beside her. Time blurred. Only the rhythm of rain and waves remained. She held the flash drive tight. The baby stirred, steady and calm. We're still here, she whispered. When dawn came, the storm thinned. The cabin above was still. Evelyn rose stiffly, clutching her bag. Somewhere Jonas was waiting for a call that wouldn't come. Somewhere behind her, Hale's men were still searching. She walked inland, unsure where the road led, only that it had to lead somewhere safer. The box felt lighter, though its weight stayed lodged in her chest. Salt and pine lingered as she reached the dirt road. Mud clung to her shoes. A truck sped past, drenching her legs. She didn't curse or cry, just kept walking, the flash drive clenched in her palm, like proof that survival itself was resistance. She turned on her phone. 2 missed calls from Jonas, 1 voicemail. Her hands shook, pressing play. Evelyn, listen, Lena's missing. The place was burned. Don't go back. Keep that drive safe. I'm heading to Portland. I'll find a way to get this out. Call me as soon as you can. The message cut off. She called back, no answer. She walked to the bus stop marked by a warped wooden sign. The gray box stayed in her bag, silent but steady against her side. The driver barely looked up as she paid with crumpled bills and sat near the rear. Halfway to Ashbrook, the bus stopped for fishermen. One recognized her. "You're that woman from the papers, right? I guess so." "Stay safe," he muttered. "Folks like them don't stay quiet." She gave a small nod, then watched the gray line of coast slip by. Ashbrook looked smaller than before. Her house still stood, the lock replaced. She used her spare key. Dust filmed the surfaces. Everything else was untouched. She changed, made tea, and spread Bellamy's letter on the table. The ink had bled slightly, but the words held, "If truth has found, you don't let fear rewrite it." A knock interrupted her. 3 taps, then another softer. Jonas stood at the door, soaked and pale. Relief hit her like a wave. "You're alive," she whispered. "Barely." He stepped in. "Lena's gone. They found her first." His hands rubbed warmth back into his skin. "But she gave you the drive." Evelyn handed it to him. "She said it had everything." He plugged it into his laptop. Files filled the screen, reports, patents, falsified data. "This could end Hale Dynamics," he murmured. "Then we give it to the press." He hesitated. "If we do, they'll come after you harder. They'll use your pregnancy, your background, everything. They already have." He exhaled slowly. "There's one journalist I trust, but we'll need to prove the prototype works. Otherwise, they'll claim fabrication." Evelyn's eyes went to the gray box. "It reacts when I touch it. You shouldn't be the one to test it." "Then who will?" He didn't answer. They spent hours reading files, proof of lies, buried patents, signatures forged after Bellamy's death. When dusk fell, Jonas closed the laptop. "I'll take this to Portland tonight. Meet the journalist, give her the data. You stay here and keep it hidden. Don't open the door." She wanted to protest, but only nodded. He looked worn out, his jacket still damp. She poured him tea. He drank half, then stood. "Jonas," she said, "if something happens, then you finish it." Bellamy didn't die for nothing. After he left, she locked the door twice and sat back down. The tea had gone cold. She flipped through Bellamy's notebook, formulas, sketches, scraps of thought. One line stopped her. "Every invention carries its maker's heart, and some hearts don't belong to men like Hale." Wind rose, carrying distant sirens. She moved the gray box under the crib, then turned off the lights. Near midnight, her phone buzzed. A message from Jonas' meeting went wrong. "Don't stay home. They know where you are." Headlights glowed at the end of the street. Her hand gripped the knob. She listened to the hum of the fridge, the tick of the clock, then opened the back door and slipped into the dark. She walked the road's edge, cars splashing her shoes. She didn't raise her hand for help, just kept moving. At a gas station, she went straight to the restroom. The fluorescent light buzzed. She wiped her face and studied the reflection, pale skin, hollow eyes, salt on her lips. The woman staring back looked worn but unbreakable. At the counter, a young clerk glanced up. "You okay, ma'am?" "I'm fine," she said. "Just passing through." He nodded, distracted. She bought a sandwich and water, eating as she walked. The wind tugged at her jacket. The road bent toward the woods. Thunder rumbled somewhere ahead. She thought of Jonas. His calm voice, the last message. "Don't stay home. They know where you are." Her phone had no service. She slipped it into her pocket and kept walking. By dawn, she reached a rundown motel called Coastal Rest. The clerk didn't look up. Cash only. Evelyn paid for 2 nights and took the key. The room smelled faintly of bleach and old carpet. She set the gray box on the bed and sat beside it. The stillness pressed close. She thought about calling someone, but every name in her mind felt distant. Parents, co-workers, all gone quiet. She turned the flash drive in her hand under the lamplight. Small, fragile. It didn't look like something that could topple a corporation. She wondered if Jonas had made it out. Later, she walked to a diner. The waitress poured her coffee and left the pot. 2 men at the counter talked over the news. Hale Dynamics investigations, missing prototypes. "CEO's on the run," one said. "Some woman in Oregon's mixed up in it. Pregnant," they said. Crazy world, the other replied. Evelyn rose before they noticed her trembling hands. The waitress frowned but didn't ask. Back in the room, she locked the door and turned on the TV. Richard Hale's image filled the screen, reporters shouting as he pushed through cameras. Beneath him, her name scrolled once before disappearing. She switched it off. The day dragged. She moved between bed and window, unable to rest. Near dusk, the phone buzzed. An unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. Evelyn Jonas's voice, rough but alive. I'm safe. The journalist has everything. It's out, every file, every report. She sank onto the bed. You're sure it's everywhere? The government's opening an inquiry. Hale can't hide now. You did it. Her throat tightened. We did. He'll still come for us, but not like before. It's too public. Lay low till I call again. Promise me. I promise. The line went dead. She kept the phone in her hand, listening to the slow patter beyond the walls. Relief came in uneven waves, chased by dread. Winning didn't feel safe. It just left her uncovered. When exhaustion caught up, she ran a bath. The warmth eased her breath. The baby shifted beneath her ribs. You picked a hell of a world, she whispered. Downstairs, the motel TV blared, reporters speaking over one another, lawsuit, fraud, federal investigation. Evelyn stood by the doorway, letting each word land. Hale Dynamics stock had crashed. Executives resigned. Warrants were issued. Her pulse steadied. The fear that had carried her this far thinned, leaving only focus. She walked out to the street. It smelled faintly of salt and metal, and the horizon stretched clean ahead. At the diner across the road, people gathered beneath a humming TV. A man pointed at the screen. That's her, he murmured. The woman who exposed it. The waitress hushed him, glancing at Evelyn when she entered. She kept her head down and ordered coffee. Cups clinked. No one spoke. She drank slowly, staring at the table as the air around her thickened with whispers. Halfway through the cup, her phone buzzed. Meet me at the courthouse at noon. It's time. Jonas. She paid and left without a word. The courthouse in Portland buzzed with reporters, lawyers, and police. Jonas met her at the steps, jacket, rumpled eyes alert. They called a hearing, he said. Hale's team claims the documents were forged. Judge wants both sides present. They're still fighting. Desperation makes people bold, he said. But Lena's files hit the press first. They can't bury it now. They entered through the side door. The hallway smelled faintly of paper and disinfectant. In the courtroom, Hale sat across from her, pale and tense, his lawyers lined up beside him like shields. When the judge entered, everyone rose. The hush that followed felt heavy. Jonas began. Your Honor, Dr. Lena Park's recovered files prove Arthur Bellamy's prototype predates any Hale Dynamics patent. The corporation falsified records, suppressed test data, and stole Bellamy's invention. Hale's attorney countered smoothly, accusing Evelyn of manipulation by disgruntled employees. The words barely reached her. She'd already lived through worse. When the judge asked if she wished to testify, Jonas gave a small nod. I didn't steal anything, she said. I bought what someone left behind. Inside, it was proof of what they'd done. I didn't ask for this, but pretending not to see would have been worse. Her tone was even, her words plain. The courtroom stayed still. Hours passed, questions, motions, objections. When it ended, the judge took the case under review. Cameras flashed as the doors opened, voices calling her name. But she kept her gaze low and followed Jonas outside. The courthouse steps gleamed faintly with rain. Jonas joined her near the curb. Whatever the ruling is, he said, you've already done more than enough. Winning doesn't feel like much right now. It rarely does when you're standing in the wreckage. They crossed to a small park. Faint blue broke through the clouds. Evelyn sat, jacket folded, beside her. Bellamy used to talk about energy like it was alive, Jonas said. Said it couldn't be owned, only shared. Maybe that's what frightened them most. Evelyn watched pigeons scatter as a child tossed crumbs. People hate losing control, she murmured. What will you do now? Wait for the ruling, she said, and figure out what comes after. Jonas hesitated, then handed her a folded note. From Lena. She sent it before the fire. Evelyn unfolded it carefully. If the world ever sees Bellamy's work, remind it why it mattered not profit but possibility. She tucked it into her pocket. I should go home. It's been long enough. I'll call when the decision comes, Jonas said. You won't face it alone. Maybe not, but it'll still be mine after everyone else moves on. He gave a faint nod. You survive the story, then you learn how to live again. Evelyn left him on the steps and walked toward the bus terminal. The city murmured behind her sirens' engines' voices, but each step felt lighter. She boarded the bus paid in cash and sat near the back. The seat beside her stayed empty. She rested a hand on her stomach. Back home, the driver asked. Something like that. At the stop near Main Street, she stepped off. The air held cedar and exhaust. The town looked the same, steady, unaware of what had broken beyond it. She passed the grocery, the pharmacy, the bakery with its cracked sign. Familiar faces lifted, then turned away. Her house waited at the end of the road, sun-faded and still. The sight filled her with something not quite fear, not comfort either. She unlocked the door, half expecting chaos. Everything was where she'd left it. The mug, the folded blanket. Only the air felt changed, like the walls had listened while she was gone. She boiled water out of habit. The radio hummed softly. Between commercials, the host mentioned the Hale Dynamics case, pending charges investigations. She stirred honey into her tea, then switched the radio off. Days blurred. Calls from journalists came and went. She ignored them. A letter arrived from Jonas, postmarked before the hearing. No matter what happens, tell your story your way. Don't let anyone else decide what it means. She folded it carefully, tucking it beside Bellamy's notebook. That afternoon, a knock. She expected a neighbor, but when she opened the door, Richard Hale stood there, unshaven, pale, his coat hanging wrong on his shoulders. You shouldn't be here. I won't stay long. His voice was low, stripped of its practiced edge. They're investigating. I lost the company, the investors. I needed to see what I was fighting against. You mean who? He hesitated. You think Bellamy built salvation? He didn't. He made something no one could control. That's dangerous. What's worse, she asked, a machine? Or the men who claim it? He looked away. From his pocket, he drew a flash drive identical to Jonas's. There were two versions of the files, one real, one rewritten. This is the original. Take it. It won't save anyone. Why give it to me? Because you're the only one left who still believes it matters. She took it, their hands brushing briefly, his cold, hers steady. After he left, she locked the door and leaned against it until her pulse slowed. Then she plugged the drive into her old laptop. Files open, blueprints, memos, transcripts of meetings where Bellamy's name had been erased. Some were signed by officials she'd never heard of. It wasn't just proof, it was a map of everything they'd built on lies. She wanted to call Jonas, but his number was gone, replaced by a flat recording. This line is no longer in service. That evening, the town held a meeting at the community center. People gathered to talk about the story that had made national news. When Evelyn walked in, the room hushed. The moderator cleared his throat. Ms. Shaw, we didn't expect you. I just came to listen. An older woman asked, Is it true? Did they really kill that man? Yes, Evelyn said. And they nearly broke everyone who tried to tell the truth. A man in back called, Then why'd they come after you? Because I found what they feared losing. Someone murmured, Hero. She shook her head. I didn't do this to be brave. I did it because I couldn't look away. The discussion carried on, voices tangling, people debating what truth costs. Before leaving, she handed the flash drive and Bellamy's letter to the clerk. If anything happens, she said, make sure this stays public. The day broke gray and still. Evelyn woke to the scent of wet earth drifting through the open window. The storm had passed, leaving a faint ringing stillness. She sat up, hand on her belly, waiting for the small kick that always came. It did, firm, steady. The kettle whistled. She skimmed yesterday's newspaper headlines of indictments and resignations. Near the bottom, a short note caught her eye. Community donates files of late engineer to National Archive. No names mentioned, just an anonymous resident of Ashbrook. That felt right. She poured tea and stepped onto the porch. Boards creaked underfoot. Across the street, Mrs. Morton watered her plants, humming. When she spotted Evelyn, she waved. Haven't seen you out in a while, she called, trying to remember what normal feels like. Mrs. Morton chuckled. Normal's overrated. You just need steady. They talked briefly, weather, groceries, the potholes no one ever fixed. Simple talk. Before heading in, Mrs. Morton leaned on her fence. You ever need help with the baby? You know where I am? I do, Evelyn said, and meant it. Later, Jonas arrived without calling. His hair was shorter, his face thinner, but something lighter in his eyes. He lingered by the fence until she waved him closer. "You vanished," she said when he reached the porch. "Testimony," he answered. "They finally accepted the documents. Hale's been charged fraud, obstruction, maybe worse. Then it's over. In court, yes. But stories like this never end. They just echo somewhere quieter." They sat on the steps. A car passed, a dog barked down the block. "I kept the real prototype," she said. "Couldn't let it go." Jonas nodded. Bellamy would have understood. "It's not about ownership anymore, just preservation." He handed her a folded note. From the court file, Lena's handwriting. Evelyn unfolded it. The words were shaky. "If you ever doubt what this was for, remember truth doesn't belong to the loudest voice. It belongs to whoever carries it without letting it rot." The paper trembled in her hands. She deserved better. They all did, Jonas said. At least their work won't vanish. The day stretched on. Jonas helped her fix the porch railing. They worked in rhythm without talking much. When they finished, he leaned against the post. "You'll stay here for now. I'm setting up a small fund with the settlement money for single mothers, maybe scholarships later." He smiled faintly. "Bellamy changed systems. You'll change people." She laughed under her breath. "That sounds rehearsed." "Maybe," he said, but true enough. He left before sunset, promising to return. She watched him disappear down the road, the scent of lilac and rain hanging in the air. She cleaned the kitchen, washed the dishes, then sat by the table. The gray box rested where she'd left it. She touched the surface, cool metal, smooth as stone. When she pressed the switch, a low hum returned, soft and even. A narrow line of light pulsed along the seam, faint but alive. It wasn't bright, only steady like breathing. She didn't need to understand it to know it meant something lasting. She placed it beside the old radio. "That's as safe as I can make it," she murmured. The contractions began before dawn, steady but far apart. Evelyn had expected them, yet when they came, it still felt too soon. She sat on the bed's edge, breathing through each wave, one hand gripping the blanket, the other on her belly. The hallway light cast a faint glow across the room. When the next pain tightened through her, she called Mrs. Morton. The line clicked once before that calm voice answered. "It's time, isn't it? I think so. I'll be right there. Don't you drive." While waiting, Evelyn packed the small bag she'd prepared weeks ago, baby clothes, papers, a half-read book. Her breath shortened with each contraction. She leaned against the wall, counting until the ache eased. Mrs. Morton arrived and took charge without fuss. "We'll get you to the hospital. Keep breathing, honey." The drive stretched longer than it was. The sky lightened in thin streaks over the trees. Evelyn clung to rhythm, the hum of tires, the turn signal, her own breath. Between contractions, her mind flickered to Jonas, the gray box, Bellamy's letter. All of it felt far away now. At the hospital, nurses guided her into a small room that smelled faintly of antiseptic and soap. Monitors beeped around her. Mrs. Morton stayed close until the doctor came, then stepped back. Time blurred. The pain grew sharper, dulled, then built again. A nurse adjusted her pillow. Almost there. Evelyn could only nod, sweat beading along her hairline. She gripped the rail, focused on her breathing. Inhale, exhale, pause. Another wave rose, fierce and final. Then a cry cut through everything. Evelyn sank back, trembling from exhaustion and disbelief. The nurse placed a small, warm weight against her chest. "It's a girl." Evelyn looked down at the tiny face, flushed pink and scrunched in protest. Her fingers brushed the soft cheek. "Hi there," she whispered. "We made it." Mrs. Morton wiped her eyes in the corner. "She's beautiful." Later, when the doctors left, Evelyn held her daughter close, listening to the small, steady breaths. The warmth against her chest felt like proof the world hadn't shattered. The next day moved in circles, feeding resting short questions from nurses. Jonas called that afternoon, his tone lighter than she'd heard in months. "They dropped the last charges," he said. "The judge called you a symbol of accountability." "I don't feel like one." "You're not supposed to. Symbols don't get tired, people do." She smiled faintly. "She's here, Jonas. A girl." A pause, then joy. "You did it. We both did." Before hanging up, he said, "They're forming a nonprofit to finish Bellamy's design. I told them I know someone they should call." "I'll think about it," she said. Right now, I just want home. That evening, Mrs. Morton brought flowers and a tiny knitted hat. Made this last week, she said. Didn't tell you, so I wouldn't jinx it. Evelyn laughed softly, taking the hat. You're something else. Just old enough to know what matters, and right now, that's soup and rest. 2 days later, when Evelyn was discharged, the morning felt new. Mrs. Morton waited by the car. Evelyn cradled the baby wrapped in the same blanket that had followed her through everything. Back home, sunlight stretched across the porch. She paused in the doorway at the sound of the kitchen clock ticking. Everything sat where she'd left it, the mug, the folded towels, the gray box resting beside the old radio. Mrs. Morton helped her settle on the couch. I'll warm the soup. You breathe. Evelyn nodded, easing the baby onto her shoulder. The child stirred, sighed, then slept again. The soft rhythm filled the house. From the doorway, Mrs. Morton asked, You naming her soon? Evelyn traced the baby's small hand. I think I'll wait till she opens her eyes. Want to see who she looks like first? Mrs. Morton chuckled. She's got time. Days found their rhythm. Her daughter's cries woke her early, followed by the shuffle of soft feet and the kettle's low whistle. Feeding, washing, folding motions, simple and steady enough to anchor her. Mrs. Morton stopped by most afternoons with groceries or company. You're doing fine, honey, she'd say, watching Evelyn rock the baby. Better than most first-timers. Evelyn smiled, though much of it still felt improvised. Some nights blurred into day, but exhaustion had changed it, no longer carried fear, only life pressing forward. 2 weeks after the birth, a letter arrived with an unfamiliar seal. Jonas's handwriting filled the page. The nonprofit's been approved. Bellamy's designs are open license now. We're calling it the Arc Project Energy as a bridge, not a weapon. There's a place for you if you want it. She read it twice, folded it neatly, and pinned it to the fridge. The idea felt right, but she wasn't ready to move again. For once, no one was chasing her. She wanted to live before choosing what came next. The baby stirred in her bassinet. Evelyn hummed an old tune her mother used to sing. When the child drifted back to sleep, she sat at the kitchen table and opened a notebook. The pages were blank, inviting. She began writing not about lawsuits or headlines, but the small moments, the storage auction, Bellamy's letter the night she ran with the gray box wrapped in a blanket. The words came uneven but honest. Maybe someday her daughter would read them. Maybe Evelyn just needed proof it had all been real. The town moved on around her. Children biked past the gate, the postman waved, the grocery clerk chatted about prices. Now and then, someone stopped to thank her. You did something big, they'd say. She never knew how to reply. She hadn't meant to fix anything, only refused to let it stay broken. One day she took the baby to the library. The librarian, a silver-haired woman, smiled. We've got a section on the case now. Strange seeing our town in the news. Stranger living through it, Evelyn said, laughing softly. She borrowed books on renewable energy, a subject she'd once ignored. Back home, she read during naps, jotting notes she didn't intend to keep. Learning made her feel awake again. By summer, her daughter sat upright, reaching for spoon sunlight, anything within grasp. Evelyn watched her and wondered what kind of world she'd inherit, hope and worry folding into one. That evening, Jonas called. His tone carried new brightness. We got university funding. The prototype works small but clean. That's incredible. You should come see it. People listen when you talk. I'll think about it, she said, smiling. Right now, she's my full-time project. He laughed. Fair enough. After the call, Evelyn stepped onto the porch, the baby on her hip. The sun hung low, painting the yard in pale gold. Wildflowers had grown between cracks in the fence, unplanned, alive anyway. Mrs. Morton waved from her porch. You look like you're finally breathing again. Maybe I am. The courthouse looked smaller now. Evelyn climbed the steps with her daughter in her arms, the faint scent of coffee drifting from the vendors nearby. Reporters waited by the doors, their questions subdued curiosity instead of chaos. She moved past them, adjusting the baby's blanket. Jonas stood by a bench folder tucked under his arm tie, slightly crooked. You made it, he said. I wasn't going to miss it. The hearing didn't last long. Hale's lawyers stood stiff as the judge read the verdict: full forfeiture of assets gained through fraud, lifetime ban from executive roles, restitution to employees. The words were dry but heavy, carrying the weight of what had been taken and returned. Hale stared straight ahead, jaw-set eyes refusing to meet anyone's. For a flicker of a moment, Evelyn felt something between pity and relief. Power had once made him untouchable. Now it made his fall more visible. Jonas leaned close. "It's done," almost she murmured. Justice doesn't end with paperwork. When the gavel struck, the hallway filled with movement. Reporters called out questions she ignored. A few familiar faces nodded as she passed former engineers, clerks, quiet witnesses. They looked at her differently now, not as a symbol, but as someone who had stayed until the end. Jonas stopped at the curb. "You should rest. Let it be over a while." "I will." "You." "The ARC project starts next week. Small team students, retirees." "It's a start." Bellamy would have liked that. He'd have called it inefficient, then fixed it anyway. They both laughed the sound light for the first time in months. He touched the baby's hand before leaving. "Take care of each other." "We will." Driving home, Evelyn passed through slow traffic and glimpsed a mural on a brick wall, a woman beneath an arc of light holding a glowing sphere. Beneath it the words, "Truth builds what fear destroys." She wondered if the artist even knew her name. Mrs. Morton waited on the porch, knitting in her lap. "How'd it go? It's over." "Good. Now you can start living again." Evelyn sat beside her, letting the baby stretch beneath the blanket. The sun dipped low shadows stretching across the yard. Down the street, a mower droned steadily, life moving forward. "You know, Mrs. Morton said I saw your name on that university site. They called you a community advocate." Evelyn laughed. "I'm not sure what that means." "It means people listened," the woman replied. "Doesn't happen often." They sat until the air cooled. The baby fussed and Evelyn rocked her, humming under her breath until both settled. Later, sorting through mail, she found a plain envelope with no return address. Inside was a photograph of Bellamy standing in front of a whiteboard, filled with equations, faint smile on his face. On the back, written in pencil, "The future you fought for belongs to her now." She set it near the radio beside the gray box. For a moment she considered sending the device to the ARC project, then left it where it was resting, as if it too had earned its stillness. Dinner was soup and bread eaten one-handed while balancing the baby. The evening news showed Hale's face briefly before she muted it, then turned the TV off altogether. The quiet that followed felt clean. She stepped onto the porch. A light hummed overhead. A dog barked once and stopped. The world seemed smaller, clearer. Jonas had been right, it was done. But the ending didn't feel like triumph, only release, the slow exhale after holding too much in. The baby stirred, eyelids fluttering. "You'll grow up in a world a little fairer," Evelyn whispered. Not a promise, just a hope spoken into still air. By spring, the town had shifted in small, unnoticed ways. The grocery stayed open later, the park near the courthouse reopened, and the paper stopped running. Stories about the lawsuit. People talked about road work, rising prices, and the neighbor's new dog. Evelyn preferred it that way. She spent mornings on the porch with her daughter, now sturdy enough to sit upright and grab at the world with curious fingers. Sometimes the child pointed toward the street, babbling at passing cars as if giving instructions. Evelyn followed her gaze, no longer wondering so much about what came next. Routine had turned from survival into calm. Jonas called now and then, his voice lighter each time. "The ARC project's got a lab on the west side," he said once. "We're testing a small grid, soon 30 homes if it holds." "That's 30 more than before," she said. He laughed. "We could use your name on the grant forms. You already have it where it counts. Let's see if the lights stay on first." He understood her hesitation. She didn't want attention anymore. What mattered lived in smaller things, the baby's grip on her sleeve, the sound of wind through the trees, the warmth that stayed even when the world forgot to notice. Mrs. Morton still stopped by with pie or stew, pretending it was for the baby. She'd sit in the armchair, sighing contentedly. "You look rested." "Maybe I just stopped counting the hours," Evelyn said, folding laundry. "That's how peace sticks," the older woman replied. They chatted about lilacs blooming early and repairs on the old bridge. After Mrs. Morton left, Evelyn lingered at the doorway, watching sunlight fall across the yard. Flowers had spread along the fence, untamed, bright, alive. Later that week, she visited the new ARC project lab. The place was small, all brick and hum. Young engineers crowded around a work table, buzzing with wires. Jonas waved her over. "Perfect timing," he said, pointing at a monitor. "We've got output." The screen showed a clean current, steady shore. One of the engineers grinned. Stable load. It could power a block without fluctuation. Evelyn couldn't read the numbers but felt the excitement humming around her. Jonas handed her Bellamy's old notebook. We wouldn't have finished without this. Or without you. She ran a thumb along the worn edge. All this from a box I didn't know how to open. That's how beginnings hide, he said. In things we weren't meant to find. They stood watching the data scroll. It wasn't triumph, just quiet steadiness, the kind that replaces chaos. When she left, Evelyn gave the notebook back. Keep it here. It belongs with the work. At home, she found a handwritten note from Chicago. I saw your story. I'm raising 2 kids alone trying to start over. You reminded me it's possible to fight and stay kind. Evelyn folded it neatly and slipped it into her own notebook, where her story had been forming piece by piece. Evening settled warm and slow. She carried her daughter out to watch the fading sky. Across the street, children drew crooked stars and circles with chalk, their laughter carrying easy across the yard. Evelyn whispered, "Hear that that's tomorrow." The baby caught a strand of her hair and tugged gently. Evelyn kissed the tiny hand holding her close. The moment felt simple, full enough. From the kitchen, the old radio clicked on, then faded, a glitch she no longer tried to fix. She thought of the gray box resting on the shelf, no longer heavy with fear. It was just part of the house now, part of what had survived. After the baby fell asleep, she opened her notebook. The pages were nearly full, fragmented thoughts, sketches of days that had once blurred. She wrote one more line. What begins with fear doesn't have to end there. Then closed it. The porch light flickered as crickets started their faint chorus. Evelyn stood by the door a while, breathing in the cool air, the pulse of an ordinary life returning. Far off, the glow of town lights shimmered against the horizon, steady, human, alive. She thought of how much had changed without fanfare, how peace often arrived disguised as a regular day. When the baby stirred, she went to her crib, humming her mother's old tune. The melody drifted through the small house, soft and imperfect, just enough to last until morning.